So, one of the biggest wealth transfers you'll ever have in your life is how you pay your mortgage. So, today I'm going to talk to you about what is the best way to pay your mortgage. And there's a lot of controversy on this subject. But let me tell you something, folks. I've done this presentation here hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's always the same every single time. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and I want you to honestly sit down and put down the answers to these 5 questions. And I'll tell you what most people say. Let's see what your answers are going to be. So, true or false? This is very simple. I'm going to move along very quickly. Just take a pencil and paper and write down the answer to the question. True or false? A large down payment will save you more money over time than a small down payment. True or false? A 15-year mortgage will save you more money over time than a 30-year mortgage. True or false? Making extra principal payments saves you money. True or false? The interest rate is the main factor in determining the cost of a mortgage. True or false? You are more secure having your house paid off than 100% financed. Now, if you haven't done so yet, write down your answer, true or false, to these 5 questions. Now, let me tell you what most people answer. False? I'm sorry. True, 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 and true. Everybody I've ever talked to believes that the answers to all of these questions are true. So what was your answer? So let's move forward and let's see what your answer is going to be later on. So, I know this whole thing is confusing. Look, there are 15-year mortgages, there are 30-year mortgages, ARMs, negative amortizations, bi-weekly payments, interest only. Hey, I've got a program that'll pay off your house so fast you won't even be able to keep up. There's all kinds of ways to do this. And if you listen to the talking heads on TV and radio, they're going to tell you to pay off your house as fast as possible. Well, let's find out if that's actually true. Now, if everything you thought to be true turned out to not be true, when do you want to know? Well, see, the problem is you keep talking to the same people in the same box on how to get out of the box. Hey, how do we get out of this box? And the reality is the answer is on the outside of the box. And until you get outside of the box, you're just going to be falling around all the other lemmings right off the cliff. Now, here's the reality, is once you get out of the box, you merely get into a bigger box. You're always limited by your knowledge. Now, you're to be congratulated for taking the time to watch this video because it's going to change your knowledge. It's going to give you a different perspective. And with a little bit of help, you'll actually have a paradigm shift in the way you think. Now, we have 3 types of money. We have accumulated money, lifestyle money, and transferred money. Now, we happen to believe that it is better to find the money that you're transferring rather than chasing rates of return. We also believe that it's better to avoid the losses than to pick the winners. But for right now, we're just going to talk about transferred money. So people transfer money 6 different ways out of their life. They transfer it in how they pay their mortgages, their qualified plans, college funding, taxes, protection, and major purchases. But today, we're going to just talk about mortgages because it's one of the largest ways that people transfer money out of their life unknowingly and unnecessarily. Now, of course, if you were transferring money unknowingly and unnecessarily, I would hope that you would want to know that so that you could stop doing that. Now, wealth transfers can occur no matter how you decide to pay for your house. You see, whether you believe it or not, you finance everything you buy. Well, I paid cash for it. No, you financed it. I love it when a person says to me, I paid cash for my house. Really? You mean you financed it? They said, no, you weren't listening to me. I paid cash for my house. I said, no, you weren't listening to me. You financed it. You took your cash and put it inside of your house. That's financing it. Now, when you do that, you no longer have the ability to make money on that money. But you're going to tell me that I make money on the equity in my house. But the reality of the matter is you don't make money on the equity in your house. You see, your house is going to appreciate or depreciate regardless of how much money you put in your house. It will go up or down in value regardless. Therefore, the rate of return on equity is zero. The house appreciates, not the equity. So if the equity is getting a 0% rate of return, then what is it actually doing? And the answer is it's losing money on two fronts. One, opportunity cost. If I had that money, I could invest it somewhere else. And two, inflation. The value of that dollar is becoming worth less and less every single day. Understanding where wealth transfers can occur in your mortgage can prevent unnecessary loss. The first question to explore is why have a mortgage at all? There are many reasons to not have a mortgage, but there are only 3 reasons to consider one. So the first reason is because I don't have enough cash to pay for my house. So I've got to go out and I've got to get it financed. Now, the second reason is the worst reason of all. Never get a mortgage for the tax deduction. Folks, they can change that rule anytime they want, and they actually have. When they put the last tax cuts in place, they put the standard deduction so high that the average person no longer itemizes, so that tax deduction went out the window anyway. But the real reason you want to have the mortgage is the potential benefit of the spread, and that's the difference between what it costs to have a mortgage and what you can earn on the money. Now, one of the major inflation consideration is paying down your mortgages. Consider the following. Well, people tell me all the time, I don't want to have a house payment. Okay? Well, really? You don't want to have a house payment? Well, I got news for you. Probably the best thing that ever happened to you in your entire life, I know it was for me, the best thing that ever happened to you was a house payment. Yet most of you are in a hurry to get rid of it. So let me just show you something here. Based on inflation, if I have a house payment today of $2,600, I want to show you what happens to what that house payment actually cost each and every year going forward with inflation. So if I go out here to 10 years, that house payment now feels like $1,934.64. So with 3% inflation, 10 years from now, I would only need $1,934.64 to make that same payment with today's dollars. 20 years from now, I would need $1,439.56. And 30 years from now, that payment is going to feel like $1,071.17. Now, it may seem a little ridiculous to you, but these are the numbers. The bank is watching your equity grow just as you are. Unfortunately, you're not only paying the bank interest, but you also pay principal, giving away the opportunity to invest that money and the benefit for the future growth. You know, it's kind of like saying, Mr. Banker, here's an extra $100. Listen, don't pay me any interest on it. If I need it back, you can decide whether to pay it back to me or loan it back to me. And you can charge me whatever interest rates you want. And oh, by the way, if I can't make my other payments, you can keep this and all the other principal in my house. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense at that point, does it? Well, what is opportunity cost? Well, opportunity cost is the interest you're earning on your down payment, for example. Is that down payment actually making money and is it accessible? The answer is no. You put that money inside of the house where it's no longer making a rate of return, it's no longer safe, and it's no longer liquid. So what would that opportunity cost look like on a down payment on my house? Well, let's pretend that I put $20,000 down on my house, and I could have invested that $20,000 at 6% over a 30-year period of time when I bought my house. Now, 6%, folks, is a very reasonable, very conservative number with regards to investing my money. Well, rates are much lower than that. Trust me, 6%, I can use the S&P 500 and beat that without a problem. But if I look at that and I go out here, if I had taken and invested that money at 6% over 30 years, I'd have $100,452. So that was $80,000 that I could have made on that money. Now, granted, I probably couldn't have bought that house without the down payment, but if I could have kept that money in my control, not only would it have been liquid, I could have used it whenever I wanted to, it would be worth $100,000 today. The house would still have gone up in value, but it'd be worth $100,000. Now, is your house a good place to park your money? Well, let's find out. Let's say that the current value of your house is $1.2 million today. And by the way, if you're sitting here and you're watching this and you don't like my numbers, subtract some zeros, add some zeros, divide by 2, figure out your numbers. Let's say my original purchase price was $217,000. I put in $300,000 with improvements, and I bought my house 30 years ago. Now, by the way, folks, this is my house, all right? This is what it actually looks like right now today. The equivalent compound over that period of time was 2.85%. Now, you would have thought that that was really a great investment. I bought it for $217. It's worth $1.2 million right here. But I could have actually invested that money and made quite a bit more on it over that period of time. But I did have a place to live in. I was in control of it. I like my house. And over that period of time, that's a $683,000 gain over that 30 years, which is a 2.85%. I didn't even keep up with inflation. Now, let me give you an example here. Let's say that 30 years ago, when I went to buy my house, I had $217,000 in cash. Now, I didn't have $217,000 in cash at the time, but let's say I had $217,000 in cash, and I could have walked in and I could have bought my house with cash on the spot. I could have financed my house all by myself. Well, instead of doing that, I took that money and I invested it at 6% over 30 years, and I ended up with $1,306,899. Well, I took out a mortgage at the time, and let's say the mortgage rates were 6.75. They weren't those rates, and the rates were much, much lower over a period of time. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt by using today's rates. So at 6.75 on a 30-year mortgage, my payment would have been principal and interest payment of $1,407. The sum of those principal and interest payments over that 30-year period of time would be $506,685. Well, folks, I got $1,306,000 on top, and I got $506,685 on the bottom, and my house, in both cases, is still worth $1.2 million. So which one's better? Should I have kept the cash outside of the house and invested it and made the payments over time and still have a house worth $1.2 million, but have $1.3 million on top of that? Or should I have paid off the house, okay, ended up paying $506,000 and have $1.2 million and no cash? I don't know. Think about it for a second, and you'll find that having that safety and liquidity of that cash makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of safety and security, let's pretend you're my next door neighbor, okay? And your house is worth $1 million. And my house is worth $1 million. Now, you are Mr. Excess Down, so you went out and you put down $800,000 on your house, and I put down zero. I have a $1.2 million mortgage because I leveraged my house up over time, where you've been paying extra principal payments every single month, and you only owe $100,000 on your house. So we both live in $1 million house. You owe $100,000. I owe $1.2 million. I'm leveraged. And if you're thinking that's not possible, trust me, that is possible. I was not only there, but I saw many people in that position back in the 2008 era, 2007, 2008. And many of those people lost their house because they had money inside of the house when the market went down. But long story short, bottom line is, we go on a vacation. You and I, we get in a car, we drive out to Las Vegas, and along the way we get in a car accident. We both become 100% disabled, we can no longer work, and we're having a hard time making our house payments. You owe $100,000 on a $1 million house. I owe $1.2 million on a $1 million house. whose house do you suppose they're going to take first if they don't make the payments? And I can tell you right now, they're going to take your house so fast, your head will spin. And the reason why is because they can take your house, sell your house, and recoup all of their money, and all they have to do is sell it for $900,000. And they can, and they will come to me and say, Mr. Johnson, we need to figure out how to keep you in this house. Now, you'll say, that would never happen. Well, folks, not only will it happen, I've seen it happen on multiple occasions where they came in and they kept the person in the house, and I actually seen people get paid to stay in the house to keep people from breaking in and wrecking it. So yes, that can happen. Now, do you want to be over leveraged to that point? Absolutely not. But the bottom line is that when you owe the bank $100,000, that's your problem. When you owe them $1 million, that's their problem. All right. So paying off your house that quickly doesn't make a lot of sense. As a matter of fact, it's much better to keep that $1 million invested over here on the side so that you can pay off your house anytime you want. Now, one more thing, okay? Let's say while we were on vacation, I happened to live in California, there was a huge earthquake, and the ground opened up and it swallowed both of our houses. Who's better off, me or you? Did I forget to tell you that I had all of that cash sitting in a tax-free bank account over here that I could use anytime I want? Now, what is the bank's security on that house? And the answer is the house. So if the ground opened up and swallowed both of our houses, who'd be better off? Me with $1 million in the bank, or you with $1 million in the bottom of the hole? Think about it for a minute. The answer is me with $1 million in the bank. So why choose a 15-year mortgage over a 30-year mortgage? Well, the number one reason why people do that is because they think they're actually going to save on interest. Their perception is the shorter the loan, the duration of the loan reduces the cost of the loan. Now, if you follow this logic, then you should just pay cash for your house. And we've already determined that paying cash for your house financially makes no sense. Now, folks, from an emotional standpoint, most of you should go pay off your house. But if you're in this game to actually improve your financial life going forward, you might want to reconsider that thought. Now, this is one of my favorite slides ever because personally, I got it wrong, okay? But I got a question for you. If we had a $217,000 mortgage with a 6.75% interest rate, our 15-year mortgage payment at that same rate would be $1,920.25. Our 30-year mortgage at that same rate would be $1,407.46. The difference between those two numbers is $512.80. Now, here's my question. If I made the 15-year mortgage, and by the way, I do understand that if I got a 30-year mortgage and a 15-year mortgage, I could get a lower rate on a 15-year mortgage. We're just comparing apples and apples here so you can get a really good understanding of what I'm talking about. So if I had a 15-year mortgage and I paid $1,920.25 every single month for 15 years, and I paid off my house, and then I continued to bank that money for the next 15 years, every single month for the next 15 years, or I made the payment of $1,407.46 for 30 years, but I took the difference between those numbers of $512.80 and I put it in my tax-free side account over here. Which account would have more money in it at the end of 30 years? The account on the top where I paid out the house and then banked it for 15 years, or the account on the bottom where I banked the $512.80 every year, every month for the 30 years? Which account would have more? The one on the top or the one on the bottom? Now, write it down if you haven't done so. But would it surprise you to know that if I invested it at the exact same rate that my mortgage was, they would be exactly the same. So if I got the same exact rate of return that I was getting on my mortgage, they'd be exactly the same. Now, you could argue that I can't get 6.75. We could argue about that all day long, but the reality is that's not too difficult. But here's the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise is not which one is better than the other one. The point is this. In the 30 years, is there a possibility that I could lose my job, become disabled, not be able to work again, have a long-term care situation, any one of these things that could happen in that period of time? Let's say it happened at 10 years. Now, my payment here is $1,407.46. Let's say in 10 years, I went out here and I got in a car accident and I became 100% disabled. And I could no longer make my house payment. Well, if I had the 15-year mortgage, they'd take my house immediately and they keep all the equity in my house, and that would be the end of that. Whereas if I had a 30-year mortgage, I would have a side account over here that has $86,546. Now, how many $1,400 house payments do you suppose I could make using that money? Probably all of them. It's certainly enough of them that I could actually be able to save my house while I get through the tough times. So, am I more secure by having my house paid off, or 100% financed, or having money over here on the side that I could pay off my house anytime I want? Well, what would that look like? Well, if I went out here and I took a 30-year mortgage, now we'll get into some serious numbers here. Let's say I had a 30-year mortgage at 6.75, but I got a half a point lower for a 15-year mortgage, okay? So my conventional 30-year mortgage is $1,407.46 payment. My 15-year mortgage is $1,860.61. The difference between those two numbers, a little over $450, $453 difference, okay? If I banked that $453 over here in a side fund, let's use the same rate, okay? Let's say we're making 6.75. And by the way, folks, there are fixed products out there today in the 6% and above, all right? So 6.75 is not a difficult number. I'd say my top marginal tax bracket is 30%. I go out over here. What rate of return would I need to make on that side fund to pay off that house, that 30-year mortgage, in 15 years? And the answer is I need a 5.59% net after tax. And if I had a 5.59% net after tax, in 15 years, I would have enough money to pay off that 30-year mortgage. Now, folks, if I went out here and I was actually making that 6.75 and I was sidelining that, in 14 years and 5 months, I'd have enough money in this side account to pay off that mortgage. Where when I took a 15-year mortgage at $1,800, and if anything went wrong, I was screwed, basically. As opposed to having a 30-year mortgage, having a side fund over here, if something goes wrong, I have a fallback position. Now, you might argue that, well, no one's going to put that money off to the side. Well, folks, you got to put on your big boy and big girl pants and learn how to be responsible and make sure you put that money off to the side. So let's take a look over here at what that would look like. Now, question for you. Well, I actually have 5 questions for you. Based on what you know right now and what you just learned right now, would you say a large down payment will save you more money over time than a small down payment? Well, we've already learned that the answer to that is false. A 15-year mortgage will save you more money over time than a 30-year mortgage. The answer to that is false. Making extra principal payments saves you money. The answer to that is false. The interest rate is the main factor in determining the cost of a mortgage. The answer to that is false. And you're more secure having your house paid off than 100% finance. Well, the answer to that is false. Now, as I said, if everything you thought to be true turned out to not be true, how soon would you want to know? And I suspect that if you paid attention throughout this video, You started off by answering true to all 5 questions, and in the end, you at least agreed that most of them were false. Now, one of the most important things that I would tell you about what you just watched and what you just learned is to understand that right now, it's July of 2024, and we are at very high interest rates, certainly not the highest they've ever been with regards to mortgages. But we are looking at a period of time coming forward where interest rates are actually going to go down. And every day of my life, I sit down with people and I help people figure out how to make sure they live the lifestyle they become accustomed to, adjusted for taxes and inflation, out beyond theirs and their spouse's life expectancy, and then pass their money on in the most tax-favored way possible. And very frequently, I come along people that say, oh my God, I so wish we would have actually mortgaged our house when interest rates were 2%, 3%, 4%, even when they were 5%, because now they're 6.75. So that opportunity is going to come back around. And the question you got to ask yourself is, how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to buy your house when it comes time to buy your house? That all being said, remember to live like you're going to die tomorrow and plan like you're going to live forever, because you just might. Now, be sure, I'm looking forward to all your comments down below here. Be sure to put your comments in the comment section below. Share this with friends and family so that they might learn too. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember to keep smiling and make it a great day. Thank you.